In today's video, we're diving into one of the most chaotic and controversial episodes of World War II, the raid on Dieppe, also known as Operation Jubilee. In this episode, we'll explore the objectives, planning, execution, and outcome of this operation, as well as its lasting impact on the course of the war. The Dieppe raid was a major amphibious assault against the German-occupied port, launched by the Allies on August 19, 1942, during World War II. The operation was a joint Anglo-Canadian effort to establish a foothold in Nazi-occupied France and gain intelligence on German defenses. In the early years of the war, the Allies faced a dilemma regarding how to launch a successful invasion of Europe. The Germans had established a formidable network of defenses along the Atlantic coast, including the so-called Atlantic Wall. The planning of Operation Jubilee was complex and extensive. It involved a wide range of military and intelligence experts from both the UK and Canada. The plan called for a large-scale amphibious assault on the town of Dieppe, located on the northern coast of France. In early 1942, Winston Churchill personally briefed Vice Admiral Louis Mountbatten, expressing that he wanted raids of increasing intensity and developing equipment and training with a view to the future invasion of France. Louis Mountbatten was the commander of the British Combined Operations Headquarters. The port of Dieppe is built along a long cliff that overlooks the English Channel. The River Sai is on the western end of the town, and the River Arques flows through the town and into a medium-sized harbor. In 1942, the Germans had demolished some seafront buildings to aid in coastal defense and had set up two large artillery batteries at Berneville-Lugrand and Varengeville-sur-Mer. The Allied forces comprised about 5,000 Canadian troops from the 2nd Infantry Division, 1,000 British Commandos, and 50 U.S. Rangers. The Allied naval forces consisted of about 230 vessels, including ships and landing craft. Aerial support was provided by close to 900 Allied aircraft. The German 302nd Static Division was stationed in Dieppe at the moment of the Allied attack. Its total strength was approximately 1,500 men. The German Navy and Air Force supported the 302nd Division in the battle. To achieve their objectives, the Allied forces envisioned a multi-pronged attack on Dieppe. The Allied forces were to land on 6 beaches. Each of the 6 landing zones was assigned a color. 1 was on the eastern flank or yellow, 1 on the western flank, orange, and 4 on the beaches in front of Dieppe. Blue, red, white, and green. The assault on the German fortifications was to be carried out by British commandos. Other Allied troops, mainly Canadians from the 2nd Infantry Division, were to capture the town in a frontal assault. The Allied troops would then destroy the port facilities and defenses and gather intelligence before re-embarking later that day. In the weeks before the raid, the German forces at Dieppe were on high alert, having been warned by French double agents that the British were showing interest in the area. They had also detected increased radio traffic and landing craft concentrated in the southern British coastal ports. Before the sun rose on that fateful morning, the roar of engines and the clatter of weapons filled the air. Under the cover of darkness, landing craft carried the assault forces towards the beaches of Dieppe. As the landing craft were approaching the eastern sector, they unexpectedly encountered a small German convoy. An intense and furious sea fight ensued. The booming noises alerted the German coastal defenses, particularly at Berneville and Puys. With the Germans ready to man their defenses, the crucial element of surprise was lost. The assault on Yellow Beach was carried out by the British No. 3 Commando. The objective was to neutralize the coastal battery near Berneville. When they encountered the German convoy, the Allied landing craft were dispersed and suffered some losses. Most of the commandos who were able to land were beaten back and captured before reaching their objectives. The 18 commandos who managed to get ashore were unable to destroy the Berneville guns and only managed to disturb the German crews with sniping fire. The commandos were eventually forced to withdraw when the Germans later launched a counterattack. On the west end, the troops of the No. 4 Commando landed at Orange Beach. This force included the 50 United States Rangers. Their goal was to neutralize the coastal battery at Blanknesnil-Sainte Marguerite. This force landed before 5 a.m. and was able to destroy the 6 150mm guns. By 7:30 a.m., the Commando had re-embarked and returned to England as planned. This is considered the only action of Operation Jubilee that successfully completed its objectives. The troops assaulting the Blue Beach were tasked with neutralizing machine guns and artillery batteries protecting the Dieppe shores. When the Royal Regiment of Canada plus 3 platoons from the Black Watch of Canada and an artillery detachment landed near Puys, they were met by heavy German resistance. It was soon realized that the element of surprise had been lost, and furthermore, the Canadian forces encountered delays, which allowed the Germans to pin down the attacking forces against the seawall and massacre the Royal Regiment of Canada. Of the 556 men of the Canadian Regiment, 200 were killed and 264 were captured. On Green Beach, the South Saskatchewan Regiment's 1st Battalion was headed towards the town of Portville. Their objective was to capture the hills east of the village and neutralize the Hindenburg artillery position. The Canadians landed unopposed, but unfortunately for them, most of the landing craft ended up on the west side of the River Sy. The plan called for a landing on the east side of the river. These troops were forced to take a detour to cross the river through Purville's only bridge. By then, the Germans had been alerted and had positioned machine guns and artillery pieces, which stopped the Canadian advance. Despite repeated attempts to cross the bridge, the South Saskatchewans and the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders of Canada were unable to reach their target. At the end of the fight in this sector, only 341 men were able to reach the landing craft and embark, and the rest were left to surrender. After naval and aerial bombardment in the central sector, the main frontal assault was carried out by the Essex Scottish Regiment and the Royal Hamilton Light Infantry. They were supposed to be backed by Churchill tanks of the 14th Army Tank Regiment. The tanks were expected to land at the same time, but the tanks arrived late to the beach. As a result, the 2 infantry battalions had to attack without armor support. They were met with heavy machine gun fire from emplacements dug into the overlooking cliffs. Unable to clear the obstacles and scale the seawall, they suffered heavy losses. When the tanks eventually arrived, only 29 landed successfully. 2 of those sank in deep water, and 12 more became bogged down in the soft shingle beach. Only 15 of the tanks made it up to and across the seawall. Once they crossed the seawall, the armored vehicles encountered a series of tank obstacles that prevented their entry into the town. Blocked from moving any further, the Churchill tanks were forced to return to the beach, where they provided fire support for the now retreating infantry. None of the tanks managed to return to England. All the tank crews that landed were either killed or captured. Unaware of the situation on the beaches because of a smokescreen laid by the destroyers, Major General Roberts sent in the 2 reserve units, the Fusiliers Montroyal and the Royal Marines. At 7 o'clock, the Fusiliers, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Dollard Menard, sailed towards the beach. They were heavily engaged by the Germans, who hit them with mortar and machine gun fire, destroying many of the landing crafts. As a result, only a few men managed to reach the town. Those men were then sent in towards the center of Dieppe and became pinned down under the cliffs. A short time later, Roberts ordered the Royal Marines to land in order to assist the Fusiliers Montroyal. Not being prepared to support the Fusiliers, the Marines had to transfer from their gunboats and motorboat transports onto landing craft. The Royal Marines' landing craft were heavily engaged on their way in, with many vessels destroyed or disabled. Those Royal Marines that did reach the shore were either killed or captured. During the operation, multiple individual acts of heroism emerged. Canadian and British soldiers, inspired by a sense of duty and camaraderie, displayed extraordinary bravery. They fought with unwavering resolve, leading the charge against seemingly insurmountable odds. Their actions would be etched in history and forever remembered as a testament to the indomitable spirit of the Allied forces. At 9:40 a.m., under heavy fire and mounting losses, the withdrawal from the main landing beaches began. The operation was completed by 1400 hours. Of the nearly 5,000-strong Canadian contingent, 3,367 were killed, wounded, or taken prisoner, an exceptional casualty rate of 68%. The 1,000 British commandos lost 247 men. Of the 50 U.S. Army Rangers serving in commando units, 6 were killed, 7 were wounded, and 4 were captured. The Royal Navy lost the destroyer Berkeley and 33 landing craft, leaving 550 dead and wounded. The RAF lost 106 aircraft. The Germans suffered 591 casualties, 322 fatalities and 280 wounded. Additionally, the Germans lost 48 aircraft and 1 patrol boat. From the German perspective, Dieppe was propaganda coup in which the raid was described as a military joke, noting the amount of time needed to plan such an attack, combined with the losses suffered by the Allies, pointed only to incompetence. German propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels and his press chief Otto Dietrich oversaw a propaganda campaign which sought to highlight the raid's failure as a sign of German strength. At the same time, the German propaganda machine took the opportunity to reassure the German population that they need not worry about an attack in the West, while most German forces were committed in the East. Despite the setbacks, the Battle of Dieppe was not in vain. The invaluable lessons learned from this daring operation shaped the course of future military strategies. The importance of thorough planning, intelligence gathering, and coordination between air, sea, and ground forces was realized. These lessons would prove instrumental in subsequent successful amphibious operations, such as the Normandy landings on D-Day. With this, we will end this episode. If you enjoyed this video, click on the like button. Want to say thanks or encourage us to do more history videos like this? You can buy us a coffee, the link is in the description below. To make sure you don't miss our future work, subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell. You can also find additional videos about other historical events in our YouTube channel. Thank you for your support. See you next time.